I remember that moment so clearly. It feels like I can still hear Lisa's voice echoing in the hallway. It was just 3 days before Easter. I arrived at my sister's house with my suitcase in hand, following my parents' request not to spend the holiday by myself. The wheels of my suitcase squeaked against the shiny marble floors, making it impossible to sneak in quietly. I tried to move carefully, but it didn't matter. Lisa's voice rang out effortlessly from the other room. "She won't fit in, Mom. Megan's just too poor for my group." The way she said it, so casually, almost like she was bored, hurt more than the actual words themselves. I froze in the doorway, my breath caught in my chest. For a second, I wondered if she even realized I could hear her. But she did. She glanced over her shoulder at me, her face perfectly made up and calm, not showing any regret or embarrassment. There was an awkward pause, then she added, "It's not that I hate her. She just isn't a good match." I managed a tiny, shaky laugh because laughing was the only way to keep my pride from falling apart. There's something about hearing your sister dismiss you so easily that stings in a way you never expected. Lisa has always been the shining star of our family. In every photo, she's the one you notice first. At every family party, she's the one making everyone laugh with her big smile and even bigger personality. Our parents loved us both, but Lisa always chased the spotlight, and people rewarded her for it. She won dance competitions, entered beauty pageants, and even started modeling when she was young. She always thrived in social settings while I was happier in the background, reading a book or figuring out a puzzle. People called me the quiet one, the smart one, while Lisa loved being the center of attention. Her life glittered with likes, hashtags, and designer clothes, while mine was full of simple, private joys. Over time, Lisa's love for flashy living only grew, especially with the endless audience of social media. She was great at her job in PR not because she studied branding, but because she was her brand, glamorous, magnetic, always in the spotlight. I was fine living outside of that world. After college, I worked in finance, moving through different jobs and learning about stocks and investments. Lisa never showed any interest in what I did, or in me. So, when our parents announced they'd finally be taking their dream Adriatic sea cruise for Easter, I didn't think much of it. They had been planning it forever. But then my mom called, her voice gentle and worried, saying she didn't want me to be alone for the holiday. "You and Lisa should spend it together," she said, as if it was the easiest solution in the world. At first, I wanted to say no. I already knew how Lisa felt about having her awkward, plain sister around. But my mom insisted, saying, "You're both adults. You live in the same city. Families should be together for special days." I sighed and said I'd think about it. Before I could even talk to Lisa, she texted me, "Mom is giving me no choice. You can come if you want. I'm having some friends over for brunch. Dress nicely." That was it. No emoji, no warmth, just a command. Still, I convinced myself that maybe once we were together, things would feel different. Maybe we'd laugh about old times. Maybe my being there wouldn't bother her. That hope lasted right up until I walked into her house and heard her talking about me. After overhearing her blunt conversation with our mom, I quietly went upstairs to the guest room, trying not to let my disappointment show. I closed the door behind me and sat on the edge of the guest bed, Lisa's words looping through my mind. "She's too poor for my circle." At first, I felt numb with disbelief, a kind of empty shock buzzing in my chest. But that quickly faded, replaced by a deep sting of hurt and an urge to run. For a few seconds, I honestly considered grabbing my bag, calling a cab, and going home. Maybe I could just ignore my mom's wishes and skip this holiday altogether. But a little bit of stubbornness kept me in place. Why should I let Lisa's shallow opinions chase me away? If she wanted to see me as some stereotype, the poor sister in hand-me-downs, maybe I'd just play along for now. It almost amused me to imagine how she might react if she ever found out the truth. I caught sight of myself in the gold-framed mirror above the dresser. My outfit was plain, a black blouse and jeans, comfortable and ordinary. My hair was pulled back simply, and my makeup was barely there. I might have been quiet, but that didn't mean I was weak, and it certainly didn't mean I was poor. I took a slow, steady breath and decided I'd stay. Not for Lisa, but for Mom and Dad, and the little surprises life sometimes brings. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification, a reminder that the latest market report was about to drop. Usually, this was the highlight of my day, the moment I dive into data, spot trends, and make a few strategic trades. Lisa never had any idea that, while she was out showing off the latest designer handbag, I was quietly growing my investments behind the scenes. In her eyes, I was just another dull office worker. If she only knew that over the last 9 years, I'd built my original savings into a $910 million portfolio. It hadn't happened overnight. I started with a small sum from my first job, carefully saving every month, reading financial news after work, and learning the market's ups and downs while Lisa was off at exclusive parties. My weekends were filled with research, not shopping. I made smart bets on new markets, found promising startups, and always put my gains back to work. I never needed anyone's applause or attention. The numbers spoke for themselves, and I liked keeping my success private. My growing wealth was a secret garden, a peaceful place far away from the judgment and drama Lisa thrived on. That night, I tried to sleep in the plush guest bed. The house was so quiet, except for the faint hum of city traffic outside. Everything around me screamed luxury, from the velvet headboard to the sparkling chandelier in the hall. Still, the whole place felt more like a movie set than a real home, built to impress guests and followers instead of offering comfort. I wondered how much time and money Lisa spent just trying to keep up appearances. My thoughts wandered to the things I'd quietly done over the years, the scholarships for kids who needed them, the water wells in far-off villages, the small-town library I helped build because there wasn't a single bookstore for miles. Lisa had never asked about any of this, and I never offered. Maybe I was afraid she'd make fun of me, or maybe I just liked keeping my good deeds private, letting them speak for themselves. Eventually, I drifted off to sleep, feeling unsettled but a little more confident than before. A new idea popped into my head before I finally dozed off. If Lisa and her friends ever discovered the real story behind my boring life, what would they do? The thought made me nervous but also brought a tiny, secret smile to my lips. Easter morning arrived with a whirlwind of activity. Lisa's house buzzed with energy. Caterers moved around the kitchen, setting out huge bouquets of fresh flowers across the marble counters. For servers in crisp shirts carried trays of sparkling juice and champagne, while a harpist by the window tuned her instrument, sunlight dancing across the strings. It felt like walking into a magazine photo shoot. Every detail was polished and perfect. I slipped downstairs, hoping to go unnoticed. The air smelled of fresh flowers and expensive perfume, a scent that screamed luxury. As the party prep continued, I quietly offered to help. But Lisa just waved me off with barely a glance. "Just mingle or something," she said, sounding both distracted and a little dismissive. She was dressed in a soft pastel dress that matched the fancy table settings, her hair curled into perfect waves, her makeup flawless as always. As her friends began to arrive, the atmosphere filled with perfume, laughter, and the low hum of conversation. Rebecca walked in wearing a sharp jumpsuit, Amy floated by in a floral dress, and a few men strolled in, relaxed in pale linen suits. Their talk quickly jumped from hedge funds to new restaurants, from exclusive clubs to stories about celebrity after-parties. They tossed out famous names like party favors, each trying to sound more impressive than the last. I stood quietly off to the side, listening, knowing that, ironically, I probably knew more about real finance than all of them combined. Eventually, one of Lisa's friends, Rachel, a woman I recognized from Instagram, approached me. She wore a gleaming designer watch and offered a polished smile. "And you are?" she asked, with that friendly but distant tone people use when trying to figure out your place in their world. "I'm Megan," I replied, shaking her hand. "Lisa's sister." Her eyebrows rose in surprise. "Oh, I think I've heard a little about you. Finance, right?" I nodded. "Yes, I work in finance." But before I could say more, Lisa swept over, wrapping an arm around Rachel's shoulders. "Megan just dabbles," Lisa said, her words thick with condescension. "She's low-key." A wave of polite laughter went around the group. My face got warm, not from embarrassment but annoyance. I decided to stay silent. Let them believe whatever Lisa wanted. I had no interest in proving anything. I was here for my parents, nothing else. The brunch itself was almost too perfect. Every plate was a work of art. Poached eggs topped with glossy hollandaise, baskets of fresh bread, and delicate macarons in soft Easter colors. The harpist from earlier had been replaced by a string quartet out on the terrace, their music floating through the open doors along with the sound of clinking glasses and soft laughter. Lisa sat at the head of the table, making sure everything ran smoothly, adjusting decorations, and steering every conversation so nothing ever got too personal. I found myself squeezed between three men who only seemed interested in their next yacht trip, not in making any real conversation. Lisa checked on me from across the table now and then, making sure I was playing my role as the quiet, invisible sister. She didn't have to worry. I had no plans to outshine her. I just sat back, listening as Rebecca told a story about a spa in the Maldives and Rachel went on about some must-see designer pop-up event. Nobody asked about my Easter traditions or how I felt about our parents being away. It was as if I wasn't there at all, which, for now, was perfectly fine. I studied the room with a sense of distant curiosity, the sparkling glasses, shining silverware, the waterfall of roses and lilies across the center of the table. Lisa had spared no expense, and the effect was truly beautiful. But beneath all the style, I sensed a layer of insecurity, in Lisa and in her friends, too. Their constant need to name drop and show off felt like they were desperate to prove they belonged in this shiny world. Sipping my champagne, I watched Lisa move effortlessly from one group to the next, the perfect hostess. She really did shine in moments like these. I couldn't help but remember when we were kids, searching for Easter eggs in our grandparents' backyard. Lisa always found the most eggs, shrieking with excitement, while I just smiled, happy to be there. Some things never really change, even if everything else does. As brunch wound down, Lisa's guests wandered into the living room, drawn by trays of tiny pastries and colorful treats. The conversation grew even louder, and the stories became even more outrageous. Someone tried to talk about hedge funds, but didn't know what they were saying. I hid a small smile behind my glass, content to remain a quiet observer. Everyone at the table nodded along as if they truly understood the complicated financial talk, though I could tell most of it went over their heads. I bit my lip to keep from smiling. Rachel turned to me again, her curiosity barely hidden. "So, Megan, are you planning any trips? We're thinking about a group getaway to Barbados this summer." Her question had a slightly competitive edge. I shrank back a little, not wanting to share too much. "I've been traveling here and there. A few months ago, I went to Chile to visit a project I helped support in the Sacred Valley," I answered. Her eyebrows drew together. "A project you helped fund?" Before I could explain, Lisa jumped in with a fake laugh. "Oh, Megan's always giving money to something, whether it's some neighborhood fundraiser or a charity overseas. She's obsessed with that stuff." She said it in a way that made my work sound silly, like a kid's hobby instead of something meaningful. Rachel giggled politely, but I caught a glimmer of interest in her eyes. I tucked that away, wondering if she'd ever ask me about it privately. Finally, brunch ended and Lisa's friends left, blowing kisses and promising to meet again soon. The house grew quiet except for the staff clearing dishes and tidying up. Lisa turned to me with her arms folded. "Thanks for behaving," she said, half joking, half serious. "Mom will be happy we didn't strangle each other." I noticed she wouldn't quite look me in the eye. I took a breath. The sting of her earlier words still echoed in my mind. "Why did you say I was too poor for your friends?" I asked softly, not looking for a fight, just closure. She let out an exaggerated sigh. "Because it's true, Megan. My friends and I have a certain lifestyle, luxury vacations, designer clothes, and exclusive events. You just can't keep up." That's all I meant. Her tone was blunt, but there was something uneasy in her expression. I studied her face, searching for even a flicker of regret, but saw none. "All right," I said finally. "Don't worry about it." She hesitated, biting her lip. "Seriously though, how do you even manage your financial salary? You don't ask Mom and Dad for money, do you?" I just shook my head, smiling slightly. I manage, I replied, letting her wonder. I could have told her everything, but what would be the point? I spent one more night, just to honor my parents' wish for us to be together for Easter. But the next morning, I left early, turning down Lisa's lukewarm offer of a chauffeured ride. My car, a well-cared-for older model, was waiting outside. As I packed my things, Lisa stood on the porch, wrapped in a silky robe, holding her fancy latte, looking like a picture from her own Instagram feed. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of sadness. No matter how different we were, she was still my sister, someone I had grown up with and loved. But in that instant, it felt like we were living on completely separate planets. The drive home was quiet and thoughtful. I replayed the events of brunch in my mind, the subtle digs, the laughter, the careless comments. The line that hurt most was, "She won't fit in." Not because it wasn't true, but because of the idea behind it that I should want to fit into their world. The truth was, I didn't. My life was rich in ways Lisa couldn't even imagine. Ironically, I probably made more money than anyone at her table. I promised myself to keep my secret safe. If people ever found out the truth about my life, it would be because I chose to share it, not because I wanted their approval. Back in my apartment, a spacious, sunlit loft in a peaceful part of town, I finally felt at ease. I dropped my suitcase and relaxed in my favorite chair, surrounded by simple but beautiful furniture that I'd chosen for comfort, not for show. A message pinged on my phone, reminding me about a scholarship deadline. That was my real world, always working on projects that could make a difference for someone else. I opened my laptop and checked my investments. Some of the stocks I'd been watching had soared, and my portfolio looked better than ever. That growth meant more scholarships, more libraries, and more opportunities for people who needed them. My life didn't look flashy from the outside, but it was full of meaning and purpose. Later that night, I found some homemade soup in my fridge and warmed it up on the stove. I laughed a little, imagining Lisa's reaction if she saw my humble dinner. But I wouldn't trade my quiet, genuine life for anything, even all the glitter and glamour in Lisa's world. The comfort of my own home and knowing my investments were doing well gave me peace Lisa's fancy parties never could. I wouldn't trade my quiet life for anything. A few weeks passed with little contact between us. I stayed busy with work, new investments, and planning a community center. Lisa only sent the occasional quick text about how busy she was. Then, one night, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Is this Megan M. from the article?" With a link. Curious, I opened it. There it was, an article about me titled "The Silent Titan. Meet Megan M." It described my investing success and philanthropy, even showing a photo from a charity event. Suddenly, my secret wasn't so secret anymore. It didn't take long for Lisa to find out. Her friend Rebecca saw the article and brought it up at lunch. Lisa was caught off guard and couldn't deny it. Soon after, Lisa called me upset. "You never told me any of this," she said angrily. "Do you know how embarrassed I was? Everyone thought you were just some low-level office workers." I stayed calm. I never tried to hide, Lisa. I just don't like showing off. My life isn't about impressing people. She was quiet, sounding hurt. "You could have told me. I just didn't expect it." For a moment, we both understood. We lived in different worlds. And that was okay. I realized that beneath Lisa's anger was probably a feeling of betrayal. "Look," I said quietly, "I wasn't hiding anything. I just live my life differently. I'm not going to post my bank statements or brag about my donations online. That's not who I am, Lisa." For a long moment, there was only silence. I heard a quiet sniffle on the line. Finally, in a shaky voice, she asked, "So, what happens now?" We ended up talking for nearly an hour. Her anger slowly faded, replaced first by confusion, then a little bit of understanding. I told her some of my story, how I got into investing after college, took risks in new markets, and put every extra dollar back into my work. I told her about the charity projects I'd started, the causes I loved, and how keeping them private felt like freedom to me. She listened, sometimes interrupting in disbelief. "You own an island?" Are you funding water projects in Europe? You built a library in Ecuador? Each question sounded more shocked than the last. I explained I never felt the need to show off. Changing lives and helping others, that was my real reward. By the end, Lisa sounded different. I guess I never really knew you, Megan, she said, her voice soft. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was closer than she'd ever come. I could still hear a bit of jealousy, though. She thanked me for talking and said we should see each other soon. When I hung up, I felt a weird mix of relief and sadness. The next days were strange. Our dad called from the cruise, worried. Lisa said something about an article about you being a millionaire? He whispered as if it were a big secret. I reassured him that, yes, I was comfortable, and no, it wasn't anything shady. Mom asked, "Why didn't you tell us?" sounding more worried than upset. I explained my choices, and they seemed to accept it, even if they didn't understand. Lisa stayed distant. Her texts were formal now, not rude, but stiff. I could tell she was unsure of how to act around me. The story about me seemed to be going around in her social circle, with vague posts about the sister with the secret, but I ignored it. I had nothing to prove. One day, I was near Lisa's favorite cafe and decided to stop by. It was a stylish spot, full of people snapping photos for social media. I spotted Lisa at a table outside, her phone perfectly positioned for a selfie in the sunlight. She saw me and waved, looking a bit nervous. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, sliding into a chair. She put her phone down, still tense. We made small talk about work, her travels, and city life. Then, carefully, she said, "I'm sorry I called you poor. That was harsh." "Thank you," I replied simply. It was rare for Lisa to admit she was wrong. I sipped my coffee as she glanced around, clearly wanting to say more. Finally, she spoke. "That article, people are still talking about it. You're basically a star to those finance people." I shrugged. "I'm not interested in fame, Lisa. I just do what I do." She looked down at her designer sleeve, fidgeting, finally quiet. "I never knew you could be wealthy without showing it off," Lisa admitted quietly, sounding unsure for once. I shook my head. "No, Lisa. We just value different things. That's all." For a moment, I saw the old sister I grew up with, the one who used to dream big and share Easter candy with me. We talked a bit more, careful but honest, and she invited me to a small gathering, asking if I'd share about my charity work. I agreed to think about it. It felt like a small step forward. A week later, I got a thank you email from a scholarship student and forwarded it to Lisa, writing, "This is why I do what I do." She replied, "Wow, this is incredible, Megan. Thanks for sharing." That weekend, we met for lunch, just two sisters talking honestly, no cameras, no show. For the first time in a while, it felt like we were connecting again. We're still different, but now there's respect between us. And that's enough for me. I still drive my simple, reliable car. I still check my investment charts while I sip my morning coffee and choose to support causes that matter to me. The only real difference now is that Lisa knows, our parents know, and even some of her friends know. Even with more people aware of my success, my life feels the same, private, meaningful, and fulfilling. When I remember that Easter morning and Lisa calling me too poor, I actually feel a mix of nostalgia and a little bit of humor. In that painful moment, I found my own real self-worth. Wealth, I've learned, isn't about fancy clothes or being invited to exclusive parties. It's about having the ability to make a difference, to help others, and to be truly comfortable with yourself, even when no one is watching. So, I keep living my quiet life, confident that true luxury isn't about showing off. It's about living in a way that matters, even if no one's watching, but maybe, just maybe, inspiring someone along the way.